Most people believe that the more generous, available, and helpful they are, the more respected they will become. But the opposite is usually true. When people can reach you anytime, when your attention costs nothing, when your time is always free, you slowly lose your value. Not because people hate you, but because humans naturally respect what is rare, not what is common. This is an uncomfortable truth about human nature that thinkers like Niccolò Machiavelli understood centuries ago. If you give too much, too easily, you stop being valued. In this video, we're going to explore a powerful psychological principle: why people value what is scarce and ignore what is always available. And by the end, you'll understand how to protect your time, your energy, and your presence, so you are never treated like something cheap again. The scarcity principle. Human beings rarely value things based on their true importance. Instead, we value things based on how rare they appear. Something can be essential for survival and still be ignored simply because it is always available. At the same time, something that has little practical use can be treated like a treasure if it is difficult to obtain. This strange behavior has puzzled philosophers and economists for centuries, and it reveals a deep truth about human psychology. One of the thinkers who explored this idea was Adam Smith, who observed a famous contradiction. Water is necessary for life. Without it, human beings would not survive more than a few days. Yet in many places it costs almost nothing. Diamonds, on the other hand, are not required for survival at all. They do not feed you, protect you, or keep you alive. Yet they are treated as objects of enormous value. People spend years saving money just to buy one. The explanation is simple but powerful. Water is everywhere. It falls from the sky, flows through rivers, and exists in vast quantities across the planet. Because it is abundant, people stop noticing it. Diamonds are rare. They are difficult to extract and limited in supply. Because they are scarce, they appear precious. The same economic rule quietly shapes the way people treat each other. When a person is constantly available, their presence begins to feel ordinary. If you always answer messages immediately, always agree to help, always rearrange your schedule for others, and always make yourself easy to reach, people slowly stop seeing your time as something valuable. Instead, it becomes something expected. This does not happen because people are cruel. It happens because the human mind adapts quickly to abundance. When something becomes predictable and unlimited, it loses its sense of importance. Your attention becomes like water flowing from a tap. Useful, yes, but rarely appreciated. Many people believe that the path to respect is to give more, help more, and be more available. They assume that generosity automatically creates admiration. Unfortunately, unlimited generosity often creates the opposite result. When there is no limit to what you provide, people unconsciously assign it a lower value. Scarcity, on the other hand, changes perception completely. When something is limited, the brain immediately assigns it higher importance. When access is restricted, curiosity increases. When availability decreases, attention increases. This principle operates quietly in everyday life. Think about the people who are constantly surrounded by others seeking their time. Often, these individuals are not necessarily the kindest or the most generous. What they have mastered is something far more powerful. They control their availability. Their presence is not constant. Their attention is not unlimited. Their time cannot be taken for granted. Because of this, when they do appear, people notice. When they speak, others listen. When they give their time, it feels valuable. This is not manipulation, it is simply an understanding of human nature. Value is rarely created by how much something gives. It is created by how difficult it is to obtain. And once you understand this principle, you begin to see that the way you manage your own time, attention, and presence silently determines how others perceive your worth. The cost of unlimited availability. One of the most common mistakes people make in relationships, work, and social life is believing that constant availability will earn them appreciation. From a young age, many are taught that being helpful, agreeable, and always ready to assist others will naturally lead to respect and loyalty. While kindness is valuable, unlimited availability often produces the opposite effect. When your time is always open and your attention is always easy to obtain, people slowly begin to treat it as something ordinary. If someone knows you will respond immediately every time they message you, your reply stops feeling like a favor and becomes an expectation. If you always say yes to requests, your agreement stops feeling generous and starts feeling automatic. The human mind adapts quickly to patterns. When something is repeatedly offered without restriction, it becomes part of the background. It loses the sense of effort and intention that once made it meaningful. This is why people who constantly give their time, energy, and emotional support sometimes feel strangely unappreciated despite doing so much for others. Unlimited access removes the perception of cost. Cost is one of the hidden elements that creates value in any exchange. When someone must invest time, patience, or effort to receive something, the brain naturally assigns it greater importance. But when access is effortless and guaranteed, that sense of value quietly disappears. Many individuals fall into the trap of becoming what could be called the always available person. They answer every call immediately. They cancel their own plans to accommodate others. They listen endlessly to problems and complaints. They try to be the reliable helper who never disappoints anyone. At first, this behavior often receives positive feedback. People praise their generosity. They call them supportive, kind, or dependable. But over time, something subtle begins to change. The appreciation fades and is replaced by expectation. Instead of gratitude, there is assumption. Friends assume you will always be there to listen. Colleagues assume you will take on extra work. Acquaintances assume you will adjust your schedule. The moment you are no longer available, people may react with confusion or even frustration, not because you did something wrong, but because they had grown accustomed to unlimited access. Thinkers like Niccolò Machiavelli observed this pattern in human behavior long ago. In his writings about leadership and power, he warned that excessive generosity and familiarity can sometimes weaken authority rather than strengthen it. When leaders become too accessible and too eager to please, they risk losing the respect that comes from measured distance. The lesson is not that you should stop helping people or withdraw from meaningful relationships. The lesson is that value requires boundaries. When your time has limits, it gains importance. When your attention is selective, it gains weight. When your presence is not guaranteed, it gains significance. Respect often grows not from how much you give, but from how carefully you protect what you give. Unlimited availability may seem like kindness, but without boundaries, it slowly erodes the very respect people are hoping to earn. The power of limited access. In many areas of life, value is not only created by quality, but also by controlled access. The more difficult something is to obtain, the more meaningful it appears to the human mind. This is why exclusivity has always been a powerful tool in shaping perception. Consider how high-status environments operate. Private clubs, luxury brands, and elite communities rarely allow unlimited entry. Instead, they create barriers. There may be waiting lists, membership requirements, invitations, or strict qualifications. These barriers are not accidental. They are carefully designed to control who can enter and who must remain outside. When people see that access is restricted, curiosity grows. The mind begins to assume that something valuable must exist behind those barriers. The simple act of limiting entry increases perceived worth. This principle was studied by sociologist Thorstein Veblen, who observed that social status often depends on signals of exclusivity. People are drawn toward things that appear selective because selectivity suggests importance. When something welcomes everyone without restriction, it gradually loses its sense of prestige. The same psychological pattern appears in everyday human interactions. When a person allows anyone to access their time, attention, and personal space without limits, their presence becomes ordinary. Conversations become casual and easily replaceable. Invitations feel less meaningful because they are never refused. People begin to assume that your time belongs to them whenever they want it. But when someone protects their schedule and chooses carefully where their attention goes, the dynamic changes completely. If your time is not always available, people begin to respect it. When you cannot always attend every gathering, each appearance carries more significance. Limited access does not mean arrogance or coldness. It simply means recognizing that your time and energy are finite resources. When you treat them as valuable, others begin to see them that way as well. Think about how people react to someone whose schedule is always full. When that person finally makes time for a meeting or conversation, it feels important. The interaction carries more weight because it required effort to arrange. In contrast, when someone is constantly present and always ready, the interaction feels casual and easily replaceable. The difference lies in perceived scarcity. Scarcity naturally focuses attention. It creates anticipation and heightens interest. When access is controlled, people become more intentional about how they use the opportunity. This is why many respected individuals maintain a certain level of distance. They do not disappear completely, but they are not constantly present either. Their time is allocated with purpose rather than distributed freely. Over time, this pattern reshapes how others perceive them. Their presence becomes associated with value rather than convenience. Their attention feels earned rather than automatic. Understanding this principle changes how you approach your own availability. When you protect your time and choose carefully where your energy goes, you quietly signal that your presence is meaningful. And when something becomes meaningful, people begin to treat it with far greater respect. The strength of silence. In a world where people constantly express their opinions, share their thoughts, and reveal every detail of their lives, silence has become rare. Because it is rare, it carries a unique kind of power. When someone speaks less but chooses their words carefully, their voice often carries more weight than the loudest person in the room. Many people believe that influence comes from speaking more, explaining more, and revealing everything about themselves. They think that if they constantly share their ideas and emotions, others will understand them better and appreciate their honesty. However, the opposite often happens. When someone talks too much, their words begin to lose value. Communication follows a principle similar to economics. When there is too much supply of something, its value decreases. The same applies to information. If you reveal everything about your plans, your opinions, and your emotions without restraint, there is no mystery left. People quickly feel that they already understand you completely, and curiosity fades. History has shown that restraint can create a powerful presence. Political thinkers such as Niccolò Machiavelli wrote about the importance of controlling what others know about you. He observed that people often judge what they can see and hear, but they rarely understand what lies beneath the surface. Because of this, those who reveal less about themselves often appear more complex and difficult to predict. Mystery naturally attracts attention. When people cannot fully understand someone, their minds begin to fill in the gaps. They speculate about motives, intentions, and thoughts. This curiosity makes the person appear deeper and more intriguing than someone who openly explains everything. Silence also shifts the balance of attention in conversations. When a person listens more than they speak, others feel encouraged to share more of themselves. As they talk, they reveal their priorities, fears, and motivations. Meanwhile, the quieter individual gains valuable insight without exposing too much about their own position. This is why many skilled negotiators and leaders rely heavily on listening rather than constant speaking. By observing carefully and speaking only when necessary, they gather information while maintaining control over what others know about them. Another advantage of silence is that it allows words to carry greater impact. When someone who rarely speaks finally expresses an opinion, people tend to pay closer attention. The rarity of their voice signals that what they are saying may be important. In contrast, when someone talks continuously, their words blend into background noise. Listeners stop processing the information because they expect more words to follow anyway. Silence also protects personal boundaries. Not every thought, plan, or emotion needs to be shared publicly. By keeping certain aspects of your life private, you maintain control over your narrative and prevent others from using that information against you. In the modern world where social media encourages constant self-disclosure, maintaining this kind of restraint can feel unusual, yet those who practice it often stand out. Their presence feels more grounded and deliberate, and people become naturally curious about what they choose not to reveal. Silence, when used thoughtfully, is not emptiness. It is a form of discipline. It is the ability to decide when speaking adds value and when quiet observation is the wiser choice. And in many situations, the person who controls their words also controls the direction of the conversation. Emotional control and inner authority. Another powerful factor that influences how people are perceived is emotional stability. In everyday interactions, many individuals react instantly to whatever happens around them. A small insult can trigger anger. A criticism can create insecurity. A compliment can produce excitement. Their emotions rise and fall depending on what others say or do. When someone's emotional state is easily influenced by external events, it reveals something important. It shows that their inner balance depends heavily on outside approval or rejection. This kind of reactivity makes a person predictable and easy to influence. People who understand human behavior quickly recognize this pattern. If they know that certain words will always provoke a reaction, they gain a form of control over that person's emotional state. The moment someone can push your emotional buttons whenever they want, they gain an advantage in the interaction. This is why emotional discipline has always been associated with strength. Philosophical traditions like Stoicism emphasize the importance of mastering one's reactions. The Stoic thinkers believed that true freedom comes from controlling how we respond to events rather than trying to control the events themselves. When a person remains calm in situations where others would react impulsively, they create a powerful impression. Their stability signals that their inner state is not easily shaken. This calmness often commands respect because it suggests confidence and self-control. Imagine two people in a disagreement. One raises their voice, interrupts repeatedly, and reacts emotionally to every criticism. The other remains composed, speaks slowly, and listens carefully before responding. Even if both individuals have strong opinions, observers would usually perceive the calm person as more confident and in control. Emotional reactions often reveal hidden vulnerabilities. Anger can signal insecurity. Desperation can signal fear of loss. Overexcitement can signal dependence on approval. When these reactions appear too easily, they reveal information about what a person values most and what might influence them. By contrast, emotional restraint protects that information. When someone maintains composure even during pressure or criticism, others find it harder to predict their weaknesses. This unpredictability increases the sense of strength surrounding them. Emotional control does not mean suppressing all feelings or pretending to be indifferent. Human emotions are natural and necessary. The difference lies in choosing how and when to express them. Instead of reacting automatically, emotionally disciplined individuals pause and decide how their response should look. This pause creates space for thoughtful action rather than impulsive reaction. Over time, this habit changes how people treat you. Those who enjoy provoking others often lose interest when their attempts produce no dramatic response. Manipulative individuals rely heavily on emotional reactions to gain control, and when those reactions disappear, their strategies lose effectiveness. Calm behavior also influences group dynamics. In tense situations, people often look for someone who appears steady and composed. The person who maintains clarity while others become overwhelmed naturally becomes a point of stability for the group. Inner authority grows from this stability. When your emotional state is guided by your own judgment rather than by external pressure, you communicate a subtle but powerful message. You show that your peace of mind is not easily disturbed and that your reactions are chosen deliberately. This level of self-control requires practice and awareness, but its effects are significant. Over time, people begin to recognize that provoking you is difficult and that influencing your decisions requires more than simple emotional pressure. In a world where many individuals react instantly and impulsively, emotional discipline quietly distinguishes those who possess genuine inner strength. The power of walking away. one of the strongest signals of value is independence. When someone desperately needs approval, opportunity, or validation, they become easy to control. Negotiation experts like Chris Voss often emphasize this principle. The person who is willing to walk away holds the strongest position. Why? Because they are not negotiating from fear. They are negotiating from choice. When your identity, stability, and happiness do not depend on a single person or opportunity, you gain freedom. And freedom changes how people treat you. High standards. People with clear standards are often called difficult, but high standards create respect. When you tolerate disrespect, dishonesty, or mediocrity, you signal that these things are acceptable. But when your boundaries are clear, people adjust their behavior accordingly. Many successful leaders understood this. For example, Steve Jobs was famous for demanding excellence from his teams. His standards were intense, but those standards helped create extraordinary results. People often respect those who refuse to settle for less. The loneliness of self-respect. There is a cost to raising your personal standards. Some people will leave. Some relationships will change. Some opportunities will disappear. Not everyone will like your boundaries, but this process acts like a filter. It removes people who only valued your convenience, not your character. Over time, what remains is more meaningful. Fewer connections, perhaps, but stronger ones. The world does not automatically reward kindness, availability, or generosity. Those qualities are valuable, but without boundaries, they become vulnerabilities. Real respect often comes from balance, protecting your time, controlling your reactions, choosing where your energy goes, and remembering a simple truth about human nature. People rarely value what they can have endlessly, but they always notice what is rare. So guard your presence, protect your attention, and make sure the people in your life understand that your time is not unlimited. Because once something becomes rare, its value becomes impossible to ignore.